Dear guests, please welcome to the stage the keynote speakers of the plenary session Leading the Path Towards Sustainability in Oil and Gas Industry. Dr. Sun Xianshang, Secretary General, International Energy Forum. Ms. Deborah Phillips, Vice President of Global Industry Services, American Petroleum Institute. Mr. Jean-François Poupeau, Executive Vice President of Corporate Engagement, Schlumberger. Dr. Piers Rimmer, Director General, World Petroleum Council, United Kingdom, Chair of Energy Access Platform. And we are pleased to welcome to the stage the moderator of the session, Dr. Anna Illarionova, official representative of the World Petroleum Council Young Professionals.
Dear colleagues, dear guests, it's really a pleasure to see all you here this morning. So thank you so much for our distinguished panel that joined us today. I think we really have an amazing plenary session today that is dedicated to the topic I'm very passionate about, sustainability, and it focuses on our third pillar of the Future Leaders Forum. And at the same time, it really embraces the other two pillars we were covering during these days, leadership and innovation. So I'm really honored to moderate this session today because we have a unique opportunity to discuss how oil and gas industry is leading the path towards sustainability from different stakeholders' point of view. So we can discuss it from governmental point of view, business, association, international. I think it's really a great chance for all of us to be engaged in the discussion. This is why what I expect that we can listen to the welcoming, to the addresses, to the presentations of our speakers, and then we will open the floor for the discussion. So I encourage all of you to use this opportunity and raise your hands, make questions, give comments, maybe agree or disagree with some statements we will say, so please be very active. But just before we start, a few words. So we talk a lot about sustainability, but it means so many things that sometimes it's not so easy to give the final definition. For sure, it's about environmentally friendly technologies and corporate social responsibility, health and safety standards, people, suppliers, governance, managerial ethics, and even much more. So today, the way we produce, transport, consume the energy is really becoming pivotal in reducing the carbon footprint. And all we do in the industry is focuses on the idea of creates value in the long run, to stay competitive in the long run, attract best talents to the industry. So let me start, maybe just one more comment. So if you are interested to know more after the forum on this topic, we invite all of you to download our Young Professionals magazine that we prepared specifically for this event. It can be downloaded from your application, from the World Petroleum Council's website, from the Future Leaders Forum website. You will see fantastic articles from both young and senior leaders of the industry on this topic. And we have a special section dedicated to sustainability legacy. So feel free to know more after this session and after the FLF. And we are always happy if you become contributors to our WPC Young Professionals publication. So I think we can start, and let me address firstly Dr. Soon. So you're the Secretary General of the International Energy Forum, and it is a big international platform that fosters a dialogue and the idea of create mutual understanding on the global energy issues. We would be very happy if you can share with us your view, also from the governmental, ministerial points of view, of how the industry leads or can lead the sustainability and embed sustainability in all its processes. Yeah. Can we invite you to present from there? Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Pierce, the delegates of WPC delegations, and the speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to once again join the WPC meeting. And we at the International Energy Forum applaud the World Petroleum Council for its years of dedication and a commitment to enhance the understanding of energy issues. And also, the World Petroleum Council has been with the IEF at the forefront of energy innovation, cooperation, and policy making from its beginning. I'd like to now give my close friends, Dr. Pierce and other colleagues, for congratulations for such a very excellent meeting in the past few days. Yeah. And especially, we see so many young people to join this meeting. So this delegation and commitment over the years has driven greater engagement, encouraged innovation, and has impelled us to greater heights in energy cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, the world energy demands are growing, and most scenarios point to an increase of around 1/3 by 2040. With oil and gas making some 50% of the mix. As you know that every February, IEF work together with the OPEC, IEA, and other organizations. We have our Outlook meeting in Riyadh, Saudi. And by this Outlook, we can see that by 2040, the fossil fuels, mainly coal, oil, and gas, will still play a very important role. By this outlook, we can see that the renewables, that means solar PV, wind, hydro, biomass, nuclear, are developing very fast. But by this point, I mean the 2040, the oil and gas still play a very important role in the mix. So most probably by that time, is a mixture, means each quarter, means the coal, oil, gas, and renewable each take about 25%, rough number. So this is most probably by the outlook. This demand is driven in large part by the higher population developing countries, non-OECD countries like China and India. Adding to this, the entrance of people into the middle classes has allowed them improved access to energy goods, such cars for transport, especially of young people, like the nice cars and big cars. So allow them to improve the access to energy goods and also for clean fuels, for cooking, and phones, computers, for connectivity. Therefore, it must not be seen as propagated that sustainable development means the end of oil and gas sector. In fact, the opposite is true. The world will need a vibrant, innovative, and attractive oil and gas industry for the foreseeable future. However, the sustainability of the oil and gas industry is dependent on its ability to meet its coming challenges. As you know that 10 years ago, the G20 Energy Minister meeting just finished in Sasaki, Japan. He said the main theme of this G20 Energy Minister meeting is 3E. That is the economy, environment, and energy. During my comment, I put the 3 with another 3E. That is the energy security, energy poverty, and energy assessment. Because so far, we still have the energy security issues. Because in the Middle East, this region, and the last 1 or 2 weeks, many issues happened with the Iran issues and the security reason. If it really happens the war there, I can tell you that Asia is a big issue. Because Japan import oil and gas about 80% from outside. China import the oil crude about 48% from Middle East, this region. So by this, energy security is still issue. And fuel, energy, as important as the food for these developing countries. And also for poverty, as we know that so far still about 1 billion people know of this electricity by the statistics of IEA. And so energy assessment and poverty is still a big challenge. By 2050, we are going to have another more than 2 billion people coming, for young people. So they need more of this. So these issues are coming in front of us. In late 2015, the world gathered in Paris for United Nations Climate Change Conference. For the first time in 20 years, the world agreed to a binding universal agreement on climate, a landmark statement on the issue of climate change. Since then, various governments are taking steps to promote sustainability through cutting carbon and decreasing the methane emissions in the pursuit of policy-led transition. Ahead of us, there is a dual challenge to simultaneously to deliver an effective reaction to the energy transition and the COP targets, while continuing to satisfy a growing demand. In the face of this challenge, the industry has reacted to this with reduced carbon intensity and more efficient extraction, which is vital in low oil price environment. What has been discussed so far have been the factors around the industry, but nothing is more core to industry that is the people themselves, especially the young people in front of us. Sustainability in the market will also come from a constant supply of new human resources. And that means you, all the people, and particularly young people here today. Our industry has a human resources problem. The effect is that the price is more investment, and production and products increase employment. However, when there is a downturn, high employment industry is required, and lows where there are vast layoffs. The cycles of the oil and gas industry are caused by the capital intensity, which create the volatility. Producers must remain a longer-term perspective for the retention of a skilled workforce, with the research showing that national companies do have a higher retention rate when compared with others. The perception of oil and gas as a sunset industry has also created a significant issue in the recruitment and the retaining of young professionals. As I have outlined, the oil and gas industry will continue to grow into the future increasing demand. However, there will be changes in the industry. As we seek a more diverse energy mix, we may see a growth in need for flexible skill sets with industry-wide knowledge. I encourage young people to prepare for a more digitalized industry with a higher emphasis on energy efficiency. During this energy transition, and energy innovation is a must. By this time, we need more high-tech people. We need AI, artificial intelligence. We need the smart grid. We need the blockchains. We need the smart cities. All these needs young people more involvement. It's not less. It's not the requirement low. It's a high requirement to you. So I encourage young people to prepare for a more digitalized industry with a higher emphasis on efficiency. And I look forward with the optimism at an industry which has changed many times in my lifetime, with a growing future and a host of opportunities for the new generations. And I expect question and answers with you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sun, thank you very much for a good perspective, but at the same time, you really set in front of the young generation very ambitious targets, and you ask us to develop so many skills, so I think we have to work a lot just to respond to the challenges you just mentioned. So it's challenging for us, but still everything that you described before gives a lot of inspiration. Thank you so much. So let us move to another stakeholder view, and I would like to address you, Deborah. So since I know that API really presents the view of more than 600 members, and it's working a lot at the US level, even globally, to improve health and safety standards. So we would be very curious to know, first of all, from the US state of view, the sustainability outlook, but we know that API's targets even more to address more global issues. So please come and share with us your opinion. Thank you.
Okay, it's working. Good morning. Здравствуйте. Добрый день. Я очень рад быть в Petersburg. Thank you very much for, did I do okay? That is all the Russian I know, but I wanted to say thank you very much to our Russian hosts for having us here over the last couple of days. They have been fantastic, and your hospitality has been magnificent, so thank you very much. I join you from Washington, D.C. I am with the American Petroleum Institute, and for those of you that don't know API is a trade association based in our nation's capital, in Washington, the political center for the United States, and we serve two major functions. The first function is we serve as an advocate with our government for sound policies and regulations that really allow us to advance a prosperous oil and gas industry in the United States and globally. That's the first function, and I won't talk very much about that. The second function that I'm responsible for, and the reason why I'm here with you today, is the second function is to advance standards for the oil and gas industry that promote safety, reliability, quality, environmental protection. And I am here with you today in that capacity. We not only set these standards domestically for use in the United States, but we also promote them globally. And we do that through partnership agreements, working with other standards development bodies, and in fact, here in Russia, the Raw Standard Organization, we've been in discussions for actually several years now, and we're hoping to sign an MOU later this year to also collaborate on oil and gas standards through Raw Standard, the standardization agency here in Russia. So as Anna mentioned, we represent a broad range of companies, more than 600, that play a variety of roles in the petroleum industry, from the integrated brand companies, whose names you recognize, to companies that participate in just one segment, be it upstream exploration and production, pipeline, downstream refining. And we also represent more than 500 companies that are engaged in the service and supply sector, so providing services to the oil and gas industry or supplying products. And because we have such a broad range of members in the organization, it not only strengthens our ability to advocate on behalf of the industry in Washington, but it also allows us a broad perspective as we're setting standards for the industry as well. And so coming back to the standards part of API, our mission is to provide services and standards that allow the oil and gas industry to operate more efficiently, more safely, with more environmental protection in mind, and at the end of the day, more sustainably. And so it is from that perspective that I am with you here today. And how do we do that? I mentioned API has set more than 700 standards. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary this year, and over those 100 years, we have published more than 700 standards. And these standards fall in the areas of equipment specifications, safety management systems, cybersecurity, environmental protection, community engagement, so standards that really run the gamut of how our industry conducts its operations. And those standards in the United States are broadly referenced in the regulatory structure, not only in the United States, but in other countries as well. API standards appear as citations in Russian regulations, China, Mexico, UAE, and other countries around the world, because we've been developing these standards for so many years now. Another part of what we do is offer certification and assessment services based on those standards. So on those 700 standards, we will come out to facilities and certify that products are being specified according to those standards. We will certify individuals that they are trained. So for example, inspectors, tank inspectors, pipeline inspectors have been trained and are qualified to conduct those services in accordance with API standards, and also other types of certifications around management systems. And to conduct our business, we have offices globally in Singapore, in Dubai, in Rio de Janeiro, in Beijing, and also 2 offices in Houston, Texas. So I've spent a little time telling you who we are, what we do, why we do it, and you can imagine that this positioning of API gives us some insight into the sustainability aspirations of many of our clients. We have nearly 19,000 clients in 155 countries, and so I'm going to spend the rest of my time really providing you a perspective of what's happening around sustainability in the oil and gas industry from a U.S. perspective. And as Anna mentioned at the beginning, sustainability, there are really 3 dimensions to sustainability, as you all know. Economic prosperity, societal, making sure that we're meeting societal expectations, but also protecting the environment. So I'm going to go through each of those aspects and give you a little bit of an outlook from a U.S. perspective. So starting with the economy, as Dr. Soon mentioned, the energy landscape is indeed changing, but it's very promising and positive for the U.S. industry. As many of you know, we've been experiencing a natural gas renaissance, the availability of low-cost, affordable natural gas through onshore exploration. That capacity has been coming online over the past decade, and in fact, this year and into next year, the U.S. will become a sustained net exporter of petroleum products, including oil and natural gas. And you can see that the usages for these fuels are actually leveling off in the United States, allowing for the net export phenomenon to take place. And those exports are largely going to developing economies. The U.S. demand is largely leveling off, but we're seeing demand increase in those emerging economies, which creates the export market for the U.S. Demand in 2018 grew about 1.5% for oil products, about 5% for natural gas, and through 2040, we expect that demand to continue, which is very promising for the U.S. petroleum market. Over the last couple of days, there's been a lot of discussion about energy transformation. What does the fuel mix really look like? Looking out to 2040, even though there is global demand, will that demand be taken up by renewables or other sources of energy? Or what really is the complexion of oil and gas looking forward? And you've heard some of this, and what you see here on the screen are 3 projections from IEA, and then 2 projections from some of our member companies that have been looking out to 2040 and making predictions about what the energy mix will look like. And you see, there's some variability here in terms of what the mix looks like, but in any scenario, from what we can foresee today, you still see 60 to 75% of the mix is provided by fossil fuels. So again, this is a pretty bright future from an economic standpoint for the natural gas and oil industry in the United States. And of course, we think that that has benefits to society as well. The renaissance that we're experiencing in this sector in the United States has produced more than 10 million jobs. We expect 2 million more to come online in the next 15 years. And we've seen, you've all seen what the availability of affordable, reliable energy does to societies. Over my 20 years of experience traveling to places like India and Africa, the availability of energy really is a game changer. And so being able to supply into these growing markets is going to be a huge benefit societally. So we're now shifting into the societal aspect of sustainability. But it's not just from our perspective what benefits we're providing to society, but also what are society's expectations of us. And here's where I want to go a little bit deeper into what the societal expectations are evolving in the U.S. And what I want to say to you is that a lot of that evolution is being driven by young people. I have also heard over the past couple of days references to the changing workforce demographics in the industry. Many of the baby boomers are retiring, and in 2017, according to U.S. statistics, more than 33% of the workforce is younger Americans. Individuals under the age of 35. That was back in 2017. That number has grown since that time. And many of our companies are projecting that by 2025, 60 to 75% of the workforce will be individuals under the age of 35. Why does that matter? Why does it matter that within our member companies are going to be younger people like you? Well, those younger people have different value systems and different perspectives on issues that are important to the petroleum industry, in particular on climate change. You'll see the top 2 bars are that group of younger Americans that I'm referencing, and more than 50% of those younger Americans believe the Earth is getting warmer due to human activity, a much higher percentage than the generations that came before. And not only do they believe that and have expectations that society is going to do something about global warming, They also feel like the government should play a bigger role in making that change happen. I hear quite often from the younger people in my organization that they are disappointed that the private sector and corporate America has not stepped up, and so they're really looking for government to take action. And these young people are also voting. They are coming to the polls in our midterm election in the US in 2018. Younger people, there were more voters from younger Americans than older generations for the first time, and we expect that trend to continue. We have a big presidential election coming up next year, and we expect younger Americans to come out and really be a driving force in that election coming up. And you are already seeing some of the candidates that are entering the presidential debate bringing forward the issue of climate, environmental issues, trying to really fan the fires of those young people that feel strongly about these issues. And so I'm telling you this to paint a picture that in the US, society's expectations are changing, largely driven by young people, and our sector is responding because these are the individuals that are within our companies. These are the individuals that are voting. They're among the electorate. And so companies are taking action not because the government is mandating it and demanding it. In fact, right now in the US, there's not a lot of government action to push the industry. But companies are taking that step because society is telling them that that's the expectation. And so some progress has been made. Over the last 20 years, vehicles are much cleaner. There's states that are moving much more quickly toward electric vehicles. In California, for example, carbon emissions are at an all-time low in the United States, largely due to fuel switching to natural gas. And we see our members diversifying their portfolios, investing in renewable energy sources, including solar and wind. But it's not enough. We also see major investments going on in new technologies that can accelerate the change and address societal's expectations regarding environmental footprint. Some of the technologies on this list here are incremental. They're going to provide additional efficiency, but some are really transformational. So I'll close by just talking through a few of these with you. So drone technology, remotely monitoring our operations so that machines instead of people are in harm's way. I'm not sure if you're familiar with smart pigs. Smart pigs, there's a picture on the bottom left. This is a device that travels through pipelines and can detect leaks and breakdown of materials within the pipeline to try to proactively avoid spills. I'm going to skip to renewables. It's interesting, actually, coming from an organization that sets standards for oil and gas. We're finding synergies with renewables in terms of wind energy. Offshore wind has similar techniques and safety systems to offshore oil and gas exploration. And so we're being asked to come in and help that industry, that developing renewables industry, set standards there. And finally, digitization and remote monitoring of employees, particularly employees that are in remote locations, not only to make sure that they're performing their operations, but actually that they're safe. We've had companies that are deploying this technologies because they've had individuals that are injured, they have heart attacks on the job, they're not found, and so these technologies help them keep their employees safe day to day. The two transformational technologies are sort of in the middle of this slide. Carbon capture, we've been hearing a lot of that over the last few days. Some companies are investing hundreds of millions of dollars, and this could have make broad progress within the industry. The other transformational technology that I'll talk about is chemical recycling. And you may not understand, why are we talking about chemical recycling? Well, oil and gas does not only provide fuels, it's also a feedstock for the plastics industry. And the plastics industry, as you know, plastics is a great product. It's lightweight. It results in fuel efficiency. You can recycle some of it, but it's also resulting in a huge waste problem. I'm sure many of you have seen the photos from Southeast Asia where plastics debris is washing up on shores. It's in the stomachs of marine creatures. And so the industry, particularly integrated companies and downstream plastics companies, have formed an alliance to end plastic waste, and they're investing in technologies to try to do more to reduce that plastics waste problem. And one of the technologies that they're pursuing is chemical recycling. The idea is you take a used plastic device, and you break it down to its base monomer, you sort of put it in the front end of a cracker, and then you can produce a completely new plastic product as opposed to using virgin petroleum material. This could be a game changer, and there are billions of dollars being invested in this technology. So there's a lot of excitement building around these new technologies, and I just want to close by saying I've been so inspired by hearing your conversations, the enthusiasm, the earnestness with which you're asking your questions and engaging in this industry is truly inspirational. And I really believe that it's the next generation that's going to push this industry to deliver the sustainable energy solutions that society is demanding. Thank you very much. Spasiba.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Given that you start studying Russian, it's a great honor. So just a few things from your presentation speech that I would like to highlight. The first is I loved a lot the slide that you shared, the opinion and survey how different generation of young professionals, students see the industry and issues, so different generations. Just would like to comment that here we in the World Petroleum Council Young Professionals Committee are also very interested to know the opinions and views. This is why we launch every 2 years a survey with more than usually 1,000 participants from different countries, over 60, 70 countries every time. The topic is very acute, so 2 years ago we asked the opinion about the perception of the industry by young generation. This year we asked about the cooperation between business and academia, and every time we receive many responses that we share with the whole panel that young generation would like to know more, that there are still some gaps that can be filled by proper communication, and that there should be always much stronger links between business, academia, government, so that to engage the young generation from the very beginning, even before they go to the university, when they just, I don't know, they are in schools. So this is great that really we see so many in parallel in your presentation. Another thing, we use another channel, YP Connect, that is based on the LinkedIn platform, where around 3,000 young professionals and students from all over the world can express their opinion, communicate with the industry leaders, and know more about different activities and events in the oil and gas industry. Another aspect, what I like a lot, when you were talking about standards, I think every standard, I mean, inside means a specific leadership model and change management. And for sure, if we're talking about oil and gas business, everybody should be involved in this change. So I'm talking about the management team, but I mean the behaving culture of each employee. And this is very difficult to achieve, even if the standard is perfect and the company is trying to implement it. But I mean, every time you need to introduce this change to explain to every colleague, and usually in the big multinational companies, we're talking about 60,000, 100,000 colleagues, and I'm looking at GF at this moment. So to introduce high-level health and safety, environmental standards, sustainability standards is like a really big challenge for all of us. And since we are talking about business, I think it's time to invite GF I mean, here we have a chance to listen to the leadership of Schlumberger in it's specific global social environmental stewardship. So I hope you can really open up to us this world. And at the end, I'm sure there will be many questions to you from our young colleagues. So please, go.
So thank you, Anna. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the organizers. Fantastic Gorny University in this complex. And thank you for fixing the weather. It's been fantastic. I'd like to take a few minutes and actually take us through a topic which is going to be directly tied to sustainability in our industry. But I want to start with really setting the stage and calling to you, the future leaders, to really kind of grasp these concepts. Going forward, our way of life is evolving, and we all have a responsibility to use energy in a more, I would say, more professional and a responsible manner. We have to really change the way we produce that energy and be more responsible, and we have to evolve, if you will, the way we engage. And by that, I mean the engagement between industry, between governments, and academia. It's excellent that we're sitting in an academic institution today. And we have to use and deal with facts. We have to focus on solutions, and we have to find a balance between all of these. So I would like to basically take us through a little bit of, I would say, an insight on the company I happen to be working with for 34 years, and that is Schlumberger. So Schlumberger is a relatively large company. In fact, we're the world's leader in oil field services. And I want you to, in this graphic you see our footprint around the planet, but I want to draw your attention to some of the challenges that we have as a company, in that we have, a lot of mobile assets, we have thousands of customers, we touch, operating drilling rigs and, everything that is to do with the oil field in very, very large manners, and, we do an awful lot of computing. So this sets a stage for a very complicated set of challenges that we have in our dealing with our stakeholders. And our stakeholders in this case are the governments and our customers. And this is quite tricky. And in terms of stewardship, everything that we do as an organization, we provide oil field services, but in fact, we're really in the business of providing stewardship. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at stewardship globally for Schlumberger, as you saw in the previous slide, over 100,000 people, 85 countries. We really focus on two aspects of stewardship. We have an internal mission and an external mission. Externally, very simply, we are in the business to aid our customers meet and exceed their own environmental, social, and governance targets. Okay? Oil companies in general, they produce hydrocarbons, but they're really in the risk business. There's an awful lot of governance associated with that. Okay? So we're really in the business of enabling this. And internally, we're on a path to really address our own population, which is 50% 35-year-olds and below. Okay? So people just like yourselves, the young leaders of the future. So for us in the company, we have bucketed the environmental, social, and governance initiatives that under my responsibilities worldwide. And if you look at our track record historically, really our stewardship initiative started in 1953. In fact, we were present in Chechnya here in the early part of the last century. But if you fast forward to 1953, we created the Faculty for the Future program. We're very proud of, and I'll tell you a few more words about that. But you can see on this graphic 3 layers. At the top, it's really our governance initiatives. In the middle, our social and community, and at the bottom, the environment and climate. It's a very rich set of experiences that we're very proud of. You probably haven't heard about them, however, because as a service company, we do not wish to be at the forefront and be the spokesman, right? Our customers are at the forefront of the industry. We're just here to provide services, but we're very proud of what we're doing. In fact, we're so proud of what we're doing, we've actually been trying to now latch on to some of the broader initiatives that are ongoing in this planet. And from where I stand, I see the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in the back of the room. And in fact, for us, in Schlumberger, we have been taking those 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and applying them to our business. So what we've done is actually reached out to an organization in London called the ESG, and they are helping us analyze how the UN SDGs are applicable in each and every country that we operate in. So we have decided, following analysis, that all 17 of the goals are not necessarily applicable to where we are doing business, and we can't make an impact on them. But what we've done is chosen 11 of them, and out of those 11, taken the sub-objectives into 17 sustainable development targets for Schlumberger at a global level, okay? We're very proud of these because now we are tying in sustainability into business. And sustainability in Schlumberger equals good business. Sustainability equals efficiency, efficiency equals sustainability, okay? So these are the 17 high-level targets that we have set at the corporate level. The initiatives that we have had ongoing worldwide, and especially here in Russia, for example, the SEED, the top one at the graphic here, the Schlumberger Excellence in Education Development Program. This is a nonprofit education program that is present in the majority of the countries we operate in, and we basically provide a focus on education at levels in schools in countries where there's a need. So I remember fondly setting up a SEED school in West China, in the Tarim Desert. We have set up schools in Angola, all over the world. And here in Russia, we're very proud to have numerous SEED initiatives ongoing. The Faculty for the Future program is a program we're especially proud of, because what we do here is we have gone through 683 contracts, if you will, with ladies whom the foundation pays for their doctorate education. And contractually, we are bound to not hire them, right? They come from countries such as Ethiopia, for example. The idea here is to take women, aid them and to do their doctoral thesis and their studies, and then they go back into the schools where they, or the governments of their countries, and they raise the focus on education. Raising the focus on education is the right thing to do for our industry because we need to keep feeding the pool of engineers. And extracting hydrocarbons, you know, we're all engineers, I suppose, in this room. I'm an engineer and a geologist. We have some challenges that are not necessarily tied to engineering. In this example, this is for the Permian Basin in the United States. The Permian Basin has a very simple target to double the production from 3 million barrels to 6 million barrels by the year 2024. The challenges are not tied with the subsurface. They're tied, in fact, with bottlenecks on the surface. Topics associated with education, with housing, with health, with the development of and qualification of task forces, so employees. Those are very large challenges that we have. We're one of 20-member organization that is actually tasked, and we have pledged basically $10 million per company over 5 years, so that's about $200 million to help enable the production growth in the Permian Basin. On another angle, we're very proud to be able to announce to you that we are one of the founding partners with the Solar Impulse Foundation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Solar Impulse Foundation. Bertrand Piccard, a Swiss engineer, designed and built a solar-powered plane, okay, and it flew around the world. But the process that he had to go through to develop the technology of a solar-powered plane was extremely complex, in that he went to the organizations such as Boeing and Airbus and said, hey, let's build a plane that's solar-powered. Those companies said, no, it can't be done, it's impossible, okay? So he went to engineers that were retired, among others, and said, hey, let's build a plane, and they did. This shows that in our industry, we have an issue, and in industries in general. We don't necessarily embrace what is available to enable progress in terms of energy efficiency. In the case of the Solar Impulse Foundation, Bertrand Piccard proved to the world that in fact you can bring solar power and fly around the world. And today in Norway, you have small planes that fly on electric, okay? So it's very interesting. So we are associated with this organization, and we have 12 research scientists that look at basically projects that come in. There's an initiative that was presented at the Conference of Parties 23 in Bonn, West Germany, basically over a year ago. And in COP24, which was in Katowice, Poland, we started presenting some of the projects that are coming out of this initiative. These initiatives are focused on 5 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You should all be familiar with them. I urge you as young leaders to start being completely conversant with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals because they are critical to the success of our industry in the future. So this is something that's quite critical for us. Equally important is the focus that we have on developing technologies that take us to the future. You heard over the last couple of days, Industry 4.0, topics such as that, using AI, artificial intelligence. What we have done is gone down the path of the digital integration and set up small think tanks of professionals. For example, we have a software technology center in Palo Alto, California, with 40 engineers, basically at the forefront of technology. And what happens there is we set up relationships with NVIDIA, for example, and Google, and we utilize their expertise. So our 40 engineers gain access to hundreds and hundreds of engineers that are subject matter experts. What I would ask of you today is that all of you familiarize yourself with everything that is IT related, okay? Today, we are recruiting more and more engineers that have computer science degrees plus something, right? Could be chemistry, could be mechanical engineering, doesn't matter. But everything going forward is digital. So we have numerous technologies. You know, we have a center in Cambridge in the US, right next to MIT, where we are developing robotics. So automation for us is absolutely key going forward. And if you think about it, today, as I speak, we have a drilling rig in West Texas that is drilling and is basically completely automated. Just like the plane that I took when I flew over from Houston, which really flies itself. You have a pilot just because you probably would not want to be on a plane without a pilot. I wouldn't. But the plane actually flies on basically software. We have a drilling rig that basically operates on software. So we're very proud of that in-house, homegrown initiative. You should all have an appetite to really get involved in IT. I'm going to close now and really talk about, very briefly, we have a portfolio of technologies, and this is an area of super frustration for me. In fact, of those technologies, if you look at the percentage of our revenue, which is associated with green technology, it's about 1% of our total revenue worldwide. So is that a big number, small number? Well, technologies that are 5-year or more recent represent 20 to 25% of our revenue stream. So this very simply tells you that our customers are not ready to start using green technologies. And there are many reasons for that. We've highlighted and identified this issue and created a modeling package. There are 4 modules, one for drilling, one for site preparation, one for stimulation, and one for production. This is an example of the stimulation or fracking module, where we model everything that has to do with bringing raw materials to the well site, performing an operation, and leaving. Everything that has to do with the pollution, the emissions, the wear on the roads. And we measure out of that model and model the output of 19 key performance indicators, all of which are tied to sustainability. And our goal is very simply to go see our customers and tell them, hey, you're doing this much, if you will, in terms of impact, in terms of a carbon footprint today. You could do it with technology which is existing and cut it in half. For a company like Schlumberger, we emit a little bit less than 2 million tons of CO2 per year, and those are Scope 1 and Scope 2. 75% of that comes from trucks and vehicles. Our customers, some of which are in the room, emit from 50 to 70 million tons per year of CO2. That comes a lot from refining and downstream activities, but upstream we can make a material impact. So that's what we want to do going forward. We're applying augmented reality. This is an example in Colorado, but it could be the same in Siberia, where you would look from the side of the road at the countryside, and you would see exactly what would happen when you start drilling, see exactly what happens when you start fracking, and when you're in a production phase for 30 years, you can visualize this. If it happens to be next to your house, you would be interested. If you're a regulator, you would be interested. So in fact, we as an organization have many vehicles where we can positively impact our customers' environmental, social, and governance goals. We can do it through internal initiatives, we can do it through technologies. I won't bore you through the detail, but the technologies today exist to make a material impact onto existing operations worldwide. And this is quite important because our industry needs to learn from the past. This is an image of an oil field that could have been in Chechnya in the 1930s. It, in fact, was in California and in Texas at that time. And today, on the right side, this is an image of what you can see in West China, south of Urumqi, or in California, right? Or if you fly over Holland and you look out in the North Sea, you see a lot of windmills. So in fact, if you look out the window of a plane today, this is an image in West Texas, you can see that we're not very good stewards of the environment, okay? But in fact, we're repeating ourselves exactly today by bringing, for example, in this case, wind power, right? We have not learned anything, right? We're just perpetuating and repeating ourselves over and over again in the way we manage the environment. So my calling to you, the young leaders, is you have a huge role to play in preventing the industry from continuing down the path with a lack of sustainability focus, okay? And I'd love to shed some light a little bit later through some questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So, well, some messages that I find very interesting from your presentation. First of all, that we can reach sustainability through innovative solutions. So I would say we cannot even divide these things. So if we're talking about innovation, they should be sustainable. At the same time, so they are so linked together that I've heard at some companies, some associations, that they link together and call it like innovability. So these two things are really make part of one. Then the idea of the sustainability impact can be measured. That's why you have KPIs, you have specific metrics, and this is important to have a real qualitative identification of what we're doing. Of course, very interesting different programs, trainings dedicated to women empowerment within the industry. And we had a great panel just yesterday with our colleagues and the idea was that it's really untapped reserve for the industry. So it's great to know about the Schlumberger practices and that. And the final point is about reaching the Sustainable Development Goals that were set in 2015. And I'm looking at our beautiful social responsibility lounge here. So there are many of them. And for sure, we cannot contribute to them just one by one. It's a common work. It's a real multi-stakeholder approach. And for sure, business are working together with government, with NGOs, with academia and research to contribute to every of these 17 goals. And if we're speaking about collaboration, engagement, I think it's really time to give floor to peers who can give us the World Petroleum Council vision on the sustainability in the industry. So if we speak about platform collaboration dialogue, I mean, it's time to give you the floor, peers. Thank you.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. One of the disadvantages of speaking last is that everybody's already said all the things that you wanted to talk about. So I'll try and do a few different things. The World Petroleum Council was created in 1933, and our founder created the organization to promote oil and gas for the benefit of mankind. So I don't want to take anything away from Brundtland, but that's quite close to a definition of sustainability back in the 1930s. But we have to remember that we all live on a very small planet. When When I was about this high, there were only 3 billion people on the planet. Just in my short lifetime, that's more than doubled, and there are now 7.5 billion people. And by 2050, there will be over 10 billion people. And we're on a small planet. We will all need energy, we'll all need water, and we will all need food. And that's our big challenge for the future, and to provide all this in a sustainable manner. But we also have to be very proud about what our industry has done. Over 100 years or more, we have provided economic growth and social well-being to the population of the planet, and we have done a fantastic job. In WPC, we like to demonstrate best practice of what the industry is doing. It's not greenwashing, it's looking at real projects, real activities. We do this through different events, our congress, particularly our leadership conference, where we demonstrate what is best in the world. We are not a lobbying organisation, we're neutral, we're non-political, so we won't tell people what to do. But what we can do is go to a country and explain what is best practice in other parts of the world, and we do this. It was interesting, Anna's references to the Sustainable Development Goals, and obviously Schlumberger's references to the Sustainability Development Goals. And I do urge you to, if you don't know them, to go up on the balcony and have a look at them all. And when you look at them, you realise that the oil and gas industry is involved with or has an influence on every single one. And that is extremely important. Now, we at WPC, in more recent years, have been concentrated on Sustainability Development Goal 7. And we've been doing a lot of work with with OFID, the OPEC Fund for International Development. We've set up the Energy Access Platform. We've done this in cooperation with OFID, with the Gas Union, the LPG Association, with Schlumberger, with Saudi Aramco, Total, Shell, and the Shell Foundation. And the reason we've done this is to promote what good things the oil and gas industry is doing around the world, but also have a possible place where we can increase funding to these projects, because it is a rather obscene situation that we all come from very rich countries and we're very energy rich, but we still have over 2 billion people in the world that don't have access to clean energy. We've been looking particularly at clean cooking fuels, and if you look in India, for example, where we held a clean cooking fuel workshop recently, there are still millions of people who are burning the bad sort of biofuels for their cooking. They are living in, as well as ordinary poverty, but energy poverty as well. And when you talk about this, people say, oh, that's not very nice, and then don't really give it much thought. So when we were in India, we sent a film crew to film the real situation, and we also sent a team to do a gas analysis of what's going on as well. The film crew was interesting because they had to go to about 6 or 7 different houses, huts, before they could find an environment where they could actually interview and speak to camera without coughing. The main problem is air pollution, the things they're burning for cooking. It normally affects more women than everything else. Over 4 million women die every year by cooking and living in this environment. If you look at the gas analysis, and if you think these people are doing this, mostly women, for 8 hours a day, they are in an environment which is the equivalent of smoking 500 cigarettes an hour, which gives you an indication of why so many people die of respiratory diseases, cancers, and everything associated with this. So that is a big challenge. World population is a big challenge. Just in India, the Indian oil and gas companies are converting over 10 million households a year. They have been for the last 10 years, to cleaner fuels, mostly LPG. And even though you have 10 million new customers a year, every year, because of the population growth, the people in energy poverty is still flatlining and is still too high. So that is one of our biggest challenges. For those of us who are lucky enough to be using energy for our heating, our cooling, our petrochemical industry, for everything else, we also have to do everything in a sustainable way. Because of the large populations, we are going to need oil and gas and coal far into the future. Our challenge is to use it cleanly. With coal, to encourage people to use clean coal technology with carbon capture and storage, and with oil and gas, perhaps to move to gas and more cleaner fuels. There will be, and everybody talks about the energy transition. I don't think there's a single energy transition that fits all. There will be multiple energy transitions in different parts of the world, depending on the situations, in different parts of the world. I won't go on too much longer because I know you want to invite questions. It's very corny to say that Houston, we have a problem, but in 2020, in Houston, we will have innovative energy solutions, and we will demonstrate in Houston next year everything that is good about our industry. All our young people will be there as well, and we look forward to seeing you all in Houston next year, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Piers. I think together we presented a lot, different practices, sustainable solutions in the industry. And I was just thinking, can we ask our audience whether they agree or not? So whether really what we shared, presented, it's in line what they expected, or maybe they expect something more and would like to contribute themselves as well. So we'll do kind of survey with your hands. I mean, you've just listened to our distinguished panel, and the statement is that oil and gas industry is doing a lot in order to lead the path towards sustainability and embed it in all operations, processes, policies, and culture. So do you agree with that? So if you do agree, please raise your hands. Well, so some time to you. Well, I wouldn't say that 100% raise their hands, so it's a lot to think about. And can we do more? So if you do agree that we can do more all together, like all stakeholders, so please raise your hands. Well, we see many hands. So, as you can see, the reply from the young generation that, first of all, we can do more together, and I hope that they're ready to contribute to this challenging task. So, what I'm thinking that we are now at our third day of the conference, and I know that you participated in most of the sessions, so maybe some takeaways from your side as well. Maybe I will give the floor first to Jeff to comment, because it's a very engaging event when we have senior speakers, when we have young moderators, young participants, and we discuss some topics sometimes in a very provocative way, and maybe in some unpopular way. That is why, for me, it's interesting, how did you find it? What would you bring home to your companies, to associations? What would you share with your colleagues after?
Well, Anna, I think I would rather answer it in a way to share with the audience here, right? Some of my takeaways. And I hope you were present in all of the sessions. I took a few notes, and I just wanted to kind of go over some of the high points. I think you'll find these interesting. We had an excellent discussion, presentation from Mr. Kremers from Shell, who really spoke about the way Shell looks at the development of the professionals in that organization, their future leaders, looking at their capacity to evolve, to achieve, to be able to navigate, relationships, create relationships, really looking at an individual's personal values and integrity for all of you, you should really retain that. These are very, very important traits. It's true that everyone wants to be associated with a higher cause, and I think by raising your hands, you showed that, yeah? You want us to do better in the terms of sustainability. But your role in terms of leaders and future leaders is all about empowerment, you know? The people around you, you empower them, and as a leader, you're supposed to be developing other leaders. So this goes down, you know? We had an interesting quote I took away from Marina, the CEO here from Russia, around that leaders need to be able to change, right? But at the same time, they need to have curiosity, they need to have courage. And it doesn't matter whether you're a CEO or a leader, you know, of a team. These traits, you know, apply. From Aramco, we had a very interesting, you know, quote that going forward, Industry 4.0, and that company is definitely, you know, very well positioned in that domain, needs to be scalable, affordable, and adaptable. And those key words are very important, you know, scalable, adaptable, and affordable. A lot of the technologies I was referring to are affordable, but they're not necessarily being adopted, okay? And then lastly, you know, Mr. Jeff Schellenberger had a really good quote at the end of his talk. And he was referencing an Indian chief, you know, in the US who was sitting on top of a lot of reserves. And he said, you know, there are times when we thought we were running out of oil, but in fact, we were running out of ideas. This is very, very important. And as leaders, your role is to be perpetually challenging and coming up in your environment, you're soliciting ideas, because ideas are the way we're going to be successful in the future. So, you know, my takeaways from these 3 days are extremely invigorating, and I'm quite happy to know that you in the audience, you're the ones that are going to make this happen, what we have been talking about here on the panel. It's your responsibility, and you're going to make it, you know, come to light. And why? Well, because it has to happen, right? This is not a negotiable topic. So I really thought this was really, you know, beneficial and exciting, you know?
Thank you so much. Deborah, would you like to add something?
Sure, just a short statement. I mentioned during my talk that I've been very much impressed with the enthusiasm and the energy. My one observation from the sessions and some of the questions that have been asked from the audience is sort of a feeling of constraint. I have the impression that many young people feel constrained either in your careers or in what you're able to do in your company, or even the balance between work and personal life. And I you know, can recall back when I was younger in my career and feeling the same way. And so someone once gave me a piece of advice that I'd like to pass along because I think it's been very helpful to me, which is it's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission. And what that means is be bold. You can always do the wrong thing and apologize, but it's very difficult to get out of being frozen in uncertainty and not taking action. So my advice is be bold, think big, go after your aspirations in your careers, in your personal lives, and try to unleash the feeling of constraint.
Thank you so much, Deborah. So, well, I think we have quite space for questions from the audience. We would be happy. So we have one question just in the front. Can we have a microphone here? Yeah. Could you please introduce yourself?
Aysel Sadikli, State Oil Fund of Azerbaijan. I'd like to ask your approach regarding setting the sustainability goals in terms, do you think it should be top to down, like organization sets sustainability and people should obey it, or should it be carried out bottom up, and how to carry out the bottom up? Thank you.
So I can give you a little bit of color on how we did it. So in fact, it was both top-down and bottom-up. So from a corporate point of view, we analyzed with the help of this company, ESG, what each country's goals were, which sustainable development goals were the pain points of the country. And then our local teams, which are at the bottom, analyzed how our business can make an impact to help the country's pain points. Okay? So the country, each and every country around the world, the leaders know about the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay? And they've identified which ones are important to them and the urgent ones. And the challenge was for us from the bottom is to see, okay, well, we can help in this domain. Okay? And what's really interesting is we thought initially that this would be tough for the bottom, to embrace this, but in fact, no. Very rapidly, they know the portfolio, and they really analyze very quickly, yes, we can make an impact in this domain, whether it's education or the environment or purely technology, okay? So in fact, it's not a very tough endeavor. You just need to, the top has to get the ball rolling, and once it starts rolling, the bottom takes it and rolls with it.
Do you want to comment, to add on this? So we'll take one more question. Something you're interested in to know? Yeah, we have one more.
Good morning. My name is Dimitri, and I'm from Aker BP. I'm wondering what will be the effect of implementing all the sustainability goals on the population growth, because we want to have food, water, and when we have food and water, we probably grow faster. What is your view on that?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question and an almost impossible answer. But I mentioned food and water because there are always unintended consequences of everything that we do. And when we're looking at alternatives to fossil fuels, if we start looking at the biological ways for producing fuels and things. If we're talking biological, normally we're growing things. If we're growing things, we're competing with food sources. So there's not an easy solution. There are many solutions depending on different parts of the world you live. But no, that is a difficult question, and there isn't a one-sentence answer for that.
Well, I think if you look across the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 4 is focused around education. And oftentimes in societies, as the education levels go up, the birth rates come down. And as you get equal access to healthcare for women, equal employment opportunities for women, the population growth can in some ways be affected by progress on some of these SDGs that get to these very issues that are among the most important goals for us to be able to sustain a society with prosperity in terms of food and water, but at the same time make sure that the population isn't growing to an extent that those resources are no longer available to all of us.
Maybe I can also join them for a small comment. You told us you are from BP, right? Aker BP. Okay, so it's interesting. For the people, mankind, most 3 important resources. You mentioned 2. Water, food, another one, air. Without air, people cannot breathe and cannot live. Without food, no food, people also cannot live. Without water, even more important than food. For food, if you don't food for 7 days, you can continue. For water, without water 7 days, you already pass away. So for air, without air, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes, somebody maybe 5 minutes in the water, right? Yeah, but no more than 10 minutes, and then you have problem. So this is the most important you mentioned. Yeah, I feel that is that's the reason why for the United Nations, for the IGG 17, all this there, very important. So I personally feel that the most important to tackle all those challenges is to reach the consensus. Now in the world, two schools of discussions, very serious. For this time in Japan G20 meeting, last minute for joint statement cannot reach. And then the moderator minister had to stop for 5 minutes for two groups for further discussion and then come back. What's the issue? One word. You are British speaking, English speaking people better than me and the peers. They use words differently, chose and chosen. Present tense and past tense. Present tense means they chosen the policy in Paris time, or past time. Chose means the present time. Now you choose this policy. So two group people from Europe, from other countries, argument till about 3 o'clock midnight. Nobody sleep. Argue. What's the problem? Consent. People do not have a consent. Two school people feel that. The climate change comes. Some people no evidence. Argue. I personally believe that climate change comes. That's the fact. That's true. We have to confront these issues. We have to admit these issues. The issue is how to give the answers, how to work together. Not one country, all the countries. By 2015, Paris Agreement, 195 countries endorsed. However, one country, important country, United States, pulled out last year, 2 years. So by this issue, and some of this argument there. However, I feel that United States is a very important country, great country. We need United States come back and join this. Maybe some change now. For this one, in 3 parts, we need the United States. One for leadership. Now, Germany, China, other countries involved, active, and Japan and others. But I feel that still need the United States. Second, technology. For these 3 issues, just mentioned, water, food, and also air, also energy. All the technology issues. Just now I mentioned AI, digitalization, smart cities, blockchains, or whatever. Technologies. United States, number 1. The last one, investment. No any country so rich like United States to support these or the others. So by this, I just short to answer your question. Your question is a big, huge question. However, it's very important. On the basis of this, another one that is as important as food, that is the energy. Thank you.
Can I add something also, Anna? So, one of the challenges we have, let's just talk about water, for example, right? Every country and every customer that we have behaves differently. They have different regulatory frameworks, okay, different objectives. I'll give you an example with water. So when you frack, when you drill a well, you go and frack it, and you inject liquids, etc. Here in Russia, in Western Siberia, we employ a technology which has already been in the market about 9 years, called highway. Highway allows you to reduce the amount of water, or fluid, and of sand that you put into the formation. It allows you to reduce it up to 40–50%. That means that there's 50% of that water that doesn't get used for fracking, okay? Which is very, very good to meet the objectives. However, if you get on a plane and go over to the US, that number of usage of highway is very, very, very small, right? Why? Because the customers, the operators, don't feel forced to reduce the amount of water. They have water challenges, but they're not going to go and use technology. So here in Russia, right, there's a fantastic take-up of this technology for different drivers, because at the same time it allows you to improve your production. But over in the US, the regulatory framework is not pushing anyone to reduce water. We feel that all of our regulatory stakeholders need to be better, I would say, aware of existing technologies to evolve frameworks, because businesses will not change fundamentally unless they're forced, right? Or unless it's good business. If they perceive that not using water is good business, then they will change. But if nobody tells them that and they don't perceive it, then nothing will happen. So this is an angle, a practical, tactical angle that I think Russia does a very good job of. But it's a huge issue around the world because everybody, they might agree, you know, in a summit like the G20, but when you go into the mechanics in each country, everybody behaves differently. Yeah?
So, thank you so much. I really feel happy that we finally come up to like the joint decision view on the issues that is important in any country from any perspective. I'm talking about access to energy, access to water, quality education, job creation and prosperity. So this is like what we see here as global targets, sustainable development goals. So since we have like young generation in front of us, I think they will not survive 7 days without food. So unfortunately, we have to continue our discussion then after this panel. And I hope you will use this time for networking to approach our speakers and ask even more questions. So just let me wrap up that today we really enjoyed the speeches of our distinguished panel that shared their practices from different stakeholders' perspective, different stakeholders and I mean different ideas and cases. We all talked about the importance of collaboration and joint forces to address these issues. And what we got from you, from young generation, that we still have to work a lot at the industry all together to really embed sustainability in all our processes, culture, and mindset. So at the end, I would really like to say thank you to all our guests that were talking today. So now, as I know, there are some small gifts for you from the organizing committee, so I would like to ask you to stay on stage. And then after we finish this panel, so please stay together with our young professionals and students so that they contact you for some deep dives, and I'm sure you will reply and address their curious questions. So thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Dear guests, now you may enjoy a coffee break till 12 o'clock. After the break, the work of the panel sessions and round tables will start according to the program. Thank you.